Beloved, how are you? It is so good to be with you today. Welcome to Readings with Regina. And I'd like to give a big shout out to my subscribers, especially my newbies. It's wonderful when I see my subscribers list grow. I feel so good about that because on Readings with Regina, I'm not selling anything. There should be no commercials. I'm giving you what I know for free. And once again, before I get started today, do share these videos with your family members, in particular, your children or somebody else's children. Very important to do that. Okay, I'm going to get right into the books because it's a lot that I want to say and I don't want to take up too much time preaching to you or commenting to you about the way that I see the world. I'll just do that another time. So the first book is this one, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Why I love this book is because it is a true story of what happened to an enslaved young girl during the time that America, our country, owned black people, owned black people, owned black people. And they owned our ancestors legally. Yes, all of the great politicians got together and said, we're going to legislate the enslavement of black people so that we could have free labor for centuries, so that we could make all white people who can afford to purchase a slave wealthy. Always understand that, people. All right, here we go. Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Let me give you a little background. Once again, Linda Brent is owned by a pedophile. He is a rapist. He is a misogynist. He is all these things that the law, American law, said that he could be. Yes, Dr. Flint. So he's a man, he's a doctor, he got a little money, he got slaves. He owns Linda Brent. Now, Linda's 15. She fell in love with a black freeman who was a carpenter. Yes, the brother wanted to marry her. She was so happy. Oh, this was her first love. The brother went to Dr. Flint and said, look, I'll buy her. Dig this. He got to buy this woman. Dr. Flint was like, nah. He said, no. So the brother went away. Ain't that deep? Linda had no say in the matter because she was an enslaved woman. Now, next where we're going to, there was another guy, young guy in this town who liked Linda. So he started to, I don't want to say court because you can't really court a slave, but him and Linda started to see each other. And this was Linda's way of getting back at her master who prevented her from having her say in getting married to a lovely young black man. All right, so Linda had a plan because Dr. Flint told her, I'm building a house for you. The house is going to be on the outskirts of town. And see, this way he could legally rape her. You understand? He could rape her. He didn't want to rape her in the house because he was a married man. Okay? Yeah. So he was going to rape her out in the forest. All right. So this is where we are now. There is something akin to freedom in having a lover who has no control over you, except that which he gains by kindness and attachment. A master may treat you as rudely as he pleases, and you dare not speak. Moreover, the wrong does not seem so great with an unmarried man as with one who has a wife to be made unhappy. There may be sophistry in all of this. If you don't know that word, look it up. But the condition of a slave confuses all principles of morality. This child is trying to stay a virgin. You believe this? She's trying to stay a virgin during slavery, and in fact renders the practice of them impossible. When I found that my master had actually begun to build the lonely cottage, other feelings mixed with those I have described. Revenge and calculations of interest were added to flattered vanity and sincere gratitude for kindness. I knew nothing would enrage Dr. Flint so much as to know that I favored another, and it was something to triumph over my tyrant, even in my small way. I thought he would revenge himself by selling me, and I was sure my friend, Mr. Sands, that's the white guy that she's now involved with, would buy me. He was a man of more generosity and feeling than my master, and I thought my freedom could be easily obtained from him. The crisis of my fate now came so near that I was desperate. I shuddered to think of being the mother of children that should be owned by my old tyrant. I knew that as soon as a new fancy took him, his victims were sold off to get rid of them, especially if they had children. I had seen several women sold with babies at their breasts. He never allowed his offspring, by slaves, to remain long in sight of himself and his wife. Of a man who was not my master, I could ask to have my children well supported, and in this case, I felt confident I should obtain the boon. I also felt quite sure that they would be free. With all these thoughts revolving in my mind, and seeing no other way of escaping the doom I so much dreaded, I made a headlong plunge. Oh, pity me and pardon me, O virtuous reader. I love how she talks out to us when we're reading her work. Virtuous? Well, I haven't been virtuous in quite a while. You never knew what it is to be a slave, to be entirely unprotected. Check this out. To be entirely unprotected by law or custom, to have the law reduce you to the condition of a chattel. If you don't know that word, look it up. Entirely subject to the will of another. You never exhausted your ingenuity in avoiding the snares and eluding the power of a hated tyrant. You never shuddered at the sound of his footsteps and trembled within hearing of his voice. I know I did wrong. No one can feel it more sensibly than I do. The painful and humiliating memory will haunt me to my dying day. Still, in looking back calmly on the events of my life, I feel that the slave woman ought not to be judged by the same standard as others. The months passed on. I had many unhappy hours. I secretly mourned over the sorrow I was bringing on to my grandmother, who had so tried to shield me from harm. I knew that I was the greatest comfort of her old age, and that it was a source of pride to her that I had not degraded myself like most of the slaves. See, back then, people didn't just go out, women didn't just go out and have sex. No, you had sex when you got married. Now, you might have snuck around a little bit, but women in the 19th century, listen to this girl. She wanted to stay a virgin until she got married. And for all of you sisters out there, I want y'all to think about that. Okay? You don't just be having sex. You don't just go on a date. I'm preaching now, and I shouldn't. I got to get back to the book. But I want to say this because it is too many broken Black families today. Linda, during slavery, was trying to keep her chastity, her virginhood. She was trying. But she had a tyrant for a master. She had a pedophile for a master. She had a pig for a master. He was a dirty dog. All right, let me get back to the book. Where am I? Grandmother. Okay. I had not degraded myself like most of the slaves. I wanted to confess to her that I was no longer worthy of her love. She's going through all of this just because she gave herself to this white guy who loved her and wasn't married. But I could not utter the dreaded words. As for Dr. Flint, I had a feeling of satisfaction and triumph in the thought of telling him. From time to time, he told me of his intended arrangements, and I was silent. At last, he came and told me the cottage was completed and ordered me to go to it. I told him I would never enter it. He said, quote, I have heard enough of such talk as that. You shall go if you are carried by force, and you shall remain there, end of quote. I replied, I will never go there. In a few months, I shall be a mother. Girlfriend got pregnant. Dr. Flint stood and looked at me in dumb amazement and left the house without a word. See, he wanted to be the one to rape her, the first. Yeah. I thought I should be happy in my triumph over him. But now that the truth was out and my relatives would hear of it, I felt wretched. Humble as were their circumstances, they had pride in my good character. Now, how could I look them in the face? My self-respect was gone. I had resolved that I would be virtuous, though I was a slave. I had said, let the storm beat. I will be brave until I die. And now, how humiliated I felt. I'm actually going to stop right here. I'm going to stop right here because I actually want to emphasize to my sisters, okay, of today, how this girl tried to stay a virgin. She's owned by this licentious white dog, okay, who had the power to rape her whenever he wanted to. He didn't do it in the house, but he built a house for her in the forest so he could rape her there. I want you to understand how much this girl is trying to protect her body, to have control of her body. But she is owned by a white male and she can't protect herself. And this is one of the tremendous problems that she had. She didn't want to tell her grandmother. She didn't want to tell anybody. But notice, and I want you to think about that as I go to Ida B. Wells next. The black man was powerless to save her during slavery. I want you to understand that. Why? Because the energy from our enslavement period in America, energy now, is still in the consciousness of black men today and black women. So what did she do? There was a young white guy that was interested in her. So she went to him because she also knows who has the power. Her black man didn't have the power, but a white man would. We'll get more information on that next week. Okay, next book I'm going to go to. This sister is a heroine. I love Ida B. Wells, and I want you all to love her too. Now, check this out. The last excerpt that I read, she was on a train. This girl is 15. 15 is a hot age, man. Okay? Because Linda Brent was 15. Ida B. Wells is 15. Parents are dead. She is keeping all of her siblings together. It's all 6 of them. She got a job as a teacher. Now she's 15. How in the world did she get a job as a teacher as a teenager? Why? Because clearly her parents taught her to read and write. Her parents saw the importance in reading. And let's go back to Linda Brent for a minute. Yo, clearly she learned how to read and write. Yes, her grandmother taught her how to read and write. Her mother taught her how to read and write. Even though she was enslaved, reading was very important. And I hope to make it even more important for contemporary people. All right. But anyway, Ida B. Wells is on the train coming to her new job in Tennessee, and the train conductor told her she had to move. She had to go to the smoker's coach. She refused. He tried to pull her out of the seat. She bit him. She bit his hand. Oh, yes. She didn't just go along with laws that were terrible. And worse, the white people in that train compartment, they clapped. They stood up. Yo, get her. Get the N-word out of there. So, of course, she got off the train. Half her clothes were torn. But she fought back. That's why I love her so. Okay? And she sued the railroad. That's why I love her more. She a kid. She sued. Okay? Now, the first lawyer that she got a black lawyer. But then, and I'm going to pick up where I left off. I went back to Memphis and engaged a colored lawyer to bring suit against the railroad for me. After months of delay, I found that he had been bought off by the railroad, and as he was the only colored lawyer in town, I had to get a white one. Let me stop here again. First of all, she says he was bought off by the railroad. Not necessarily so. The railroad probably harassed that black lawyer into submission, where he just left the case. If you can imagine segregation, where they were trying to pull her off of a car and send her to a smoking area in the train, boom, that's segregation. Imagine this brother who is a lawyer. Okay, imagine what the railroad company did to him. Boom. So what did she do? Not unlike Linda Brent. She went from a colored lawyer to a white one. Why did she do that? Because whites had the power. Whites had the power. And if you think that power dynamic is gone today, I'm here to think again. Think again, people. Very often it's painful to think thoughts like this, but I want to bring out the truth of our lives here in America. You know, you look at the truth of a situation and you figure out how to move forward. All right, here we go. I had to get a white lawyer. This man, Judge Greer, kept his pledge with me, and the case was finally brought to trial in the circuit court. Judge Pierce, who was an ex-Union soldier from Minnesota, awarded me damages of $500. Now, can you imagine $500 in around 1880 or so? I can see to this day the headlines, the Memphis Appeal, announcing this is what the newspaper said: Darky damsel gets damages. See, we were called darkies. Now, we certainly were called N-words. Absolutely. Our children were called pickaninnies. And we were called darkies. Yes. So, and this was in the newspaper. Darky damsel gets damages. All right. The railroad appealed the case to the state Supreme Court, which reversed the finding. See this? Reversed the findings of the lower court. And I had to pay the cost. Before this was done, the railroad's lawyer had tried every means in his power to get me to compromise the case, but I indignantly refused. Had I done so, I would have been a few $100s to the good, instead of having to pay out over $200 in court costs. It was 12 years afterward before I knew why the case had attracted so much attention and was fought so bitterly by the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. It was the first case in which a colored plaintiff in the South had appealed to a state court since the repeal of the Civil Rights Bill by the United States Supreme Court. The gist of that decision was that Negroes were not wards of the nation, but citizens of the individual states, and should therefore appeal to the state courts for justice instead of to the federal court. The success of my case would have set a precedent which others would doubtless have followed. In this, as in so many other matters, the South wanted the Civil Rights Bill repealed, but did not want or intend to give justice to the Negro after robbing him of all sources from which to secure it. The Supreme Court of the nation had told us to go to the state courts for redress of grievances. When I did so, I was given the brand of justice Charles Sumner knew Negroes would get when he fathered the Civil Rights Bill during the Reconstruction period. Okay? So, girlfriend did win. Okay? But they changed the laws so that they could overturn her win. And she refused to give up the case. She refused because she had dignity, stamina, and black resistance. She was not going to let this railroad company get away with the indignity of dragging her, who had paid her ticket price, to a coach where men black were smoking. That's Ida B. Wells. Okay. Now, lastly, I'm going to go to our good revolutionary sister, Assata. Assata, who recently left this earth. So we're going to be coming more into the contemporary period of the 1950s in North Carolina. Here we go, Wilmington, North Carolina. So there we go. She's being raised by her grandparents. And these are some of the jobs that she would do. Okay. I would also set the tables and bring customers things they needed. Her grandparents own a beach. But my main job was collecting 50 cents for parking because there was no road to our beach. The paved road ended with the white section. My grandparents had to pay for a dirt road and parking lot to be laid over the sand. Truckloads of dirt were bought and a steamroller mashed it down so that it was hard enough to drive on. This was an expensive process, so my grandparents decided to charge 50 cents for parking. I could count and make change at a very early age. See, I love this. Don't just have children and just let them go to school. I don't care what school they go to, private, it doesn't matter. Your children need to be taught by you. You work every day? Cool, great. There's always the weekend. You always have a day off or two. That's when you teach your children the true history. And you also teach your children to be responsible for whatever duties you think they should do around the house. Now she's a kid. This is 1950 something. She's what, 5, 6, 7. And look at her doing a job for her grandparents. Okay, where am I? Okay. This was an expensive process, so my grandparents decided to charge 50 cents for parking. I could count and make change at a very early age, so it was my job to collect the 50 cents. During the week, it wasn't too time consuming, but on the weekends, if the weather was nice, it was an all-day job. Cars and buses of people came from all over North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. There were church groups, school groups, social clubs, women's clubs, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. All kinds of people would come to the beach, some with a little money, and some that you could tell were really poor. By the way, this is an all-black beach. This is during segregation. Understand that. In all the years I spent on that beach, only 1 or 2 people harassed me. Most of them treated me very kindly just like I was their kid. The people who came to the beach fascinated me. I loved to see them come and go. After a while, I would recognize the regulars, and it didn't take me long to learn their names. Some of them gave me tips, which I usually spent on the piccolo. Ah, the piccolo was the jukebox. All right. I did not know it was called piccolo. Now check this out. Check this out what I'm about to tell you. Piccolo is also the name of Tupac Shakur when he played a part on Different World opposite was it Jada Pinkett? I think it was. They called him Piccolo. I had no idea that Piccolo was related to the jukebox, and the jukebox is related to music. Ah, I just find that so fascinating. There were lots of lovers, and I spent some of my time spying on them in the parking lot. But they weren't too interesting. All they did was squirm a lot. Checking license plates, I could recognize almost all of the state's license plates on site. And collecting bugs, I had a huge collection, were much more interesting. But watching families was better. On their picnics with their fried chicken, potato salad, and watermelons, some of them looked so happy. You could tell they didn't get a chance to go on many picnics. And I was always on the watch for kids to play with when I wasn't busy. Then there were the good timers. Their cars smelled like whiskey. They would dance a lot, eat a lot, spend a lot on the piccolo, and many times I would wonder if they had made it home all right. A lot of poor people came to the beach. Sometimes the floors of their raggedy old cars or trucks were half rotted out. Usually, a lot of little children were with them, and they wouldn't have bathing suits. They went swimming in whatever clothes they had worn to the beach, and half the time the little kids wore nothing. Then there were those who came to put on airs, usually in the evening, all dressed up to eat dinner. Many would say, quote, I can't stand the sun, end of quote. I'm too black already. I ain't going out in no sun. It was amazing the number of people who said they were too black already. We looked at them like they were crazy because we loved the sun, but the umbrellas for rent went like hotcakes. Some people draped clothes and blankets around the umbrellas so that no light penetrated whatsoever. You want to talk colorism? Here it is. One lady always put a paper bag on her head and poked holes in it for her eyes. Some of the women refused to go near the water because they were afraid their hair would go back. Oh, see, we straightened that out in the 1960s. One of the moving things for me was when somebody saw the ocean. Yes, for the first time. Yes, it was amazing to watch. They would stand there in awe, overpowered and overwhelmed, as if they had come face to face with God or with the vastness of the universe. Love this. I remember one time a preacher brought an old lady to the beach. She was the oldest looking person I'd ever seen. She said that she just wanted to see the ocean before she died. She stood there in one spot for so long. She looked like she was in a trance. Then, with the help of the preacher, she hobbled around, picked up the mundane shells, and put them into her handkerchief as if they were the most precious in the world. Now I'm gonna stop there. Because if you have not, any of my listeners, that's you black ones, if you ain't seen the ocean, go see the ocean. And let me just share this with you. Back in the 1950s, when I was a little bitty girl, my Aunt Helen bought this seashell back from the ocean. I'll never forget that. Never. When I first saw the ocean, and I was a baby girl, I was overwhelmed. We didn't go there often. But look at this seashell. I hope you can see the detail. Look at that. Look at the spiral. Okay? Look at the back. Look at the intricacies of the back. This is a symbol of the universe, people. And like my Aunt Helen said back in the 1950s, you hold the shell up to your ear and you will always hear the ocean. Even now, all these decades later, I hear the ocean in this shell. This shell given to me by my aunt and perhaps also my grandmother. So when I read that segment in Assata about the old woman just wanting to see the ocean, I decided that I would show my listeners today my shell. Remember, the woman picked up I got this big shell that I will keep forever and ever and ever. Why? Because this is a symbol of the ocean. Let me just. Oh, I feel so good when she said, you can hear the ocean. You're right. Okay. And I really want my city dwelling Black brothers and sisters, if you have not seen the ocean, go and see the ocean. Watch those waves, you dig? Understand your universe and understand your place in it. Understand all the differences that are a part of this planet that we were blessed to be sent to. All right, brothers and sisters. It has been a joy to be with you. And you know that in this segment, one of the titles was, Why is Reading Important? Reading is important because it will take you to new worlds. But you know what? I don't want to give you all of my answers to why reading is important. I want you to think about them yourself. I want you to think about it yourself. And most of all, I want you to get your children to talk about being on earth so that they can get the idea of white America and their power, white media, even if it's black face people on media, is still controlled by the government. And this is not a government that loves you. It doesn't even love regular working people. Dig that. All right. I'm going to stop my talking now. It's been a joy to be with you. I pray for you every night and every day. And I want to see the best out of you and the rest of my people when we work for one another. In the meantime, in between time, I will see you next Tuesday at 2:00. Readings with Regina. I love you very, very much. Bye now.